A gun is being pointed at you. What is the best joke you have? Warning, some audiences may find this content disturbing. View at your own discretion. Welcome to the House of Reddit. Today, we share some r/ask Reddit posts from Reddit. 3 men die and go to heaven. They meet St. Peter at the pearly gates. St. Peter looks at his notebook, then back to them and says, "We have something interesting here. All 3 of you died at roughly the same time and in roughly the same place. However, I've filled my quota for today, and so I can only let 2 of you 3 into heaven. So I'm just going to have each of you tell me how you died. We'll start with you," he says, pointing to the first man. The first man says, "Well, it's a bit of a sad story. I've been married to this beautiful woman for years now, absolutely amazing gal. But I started to get the impression that she was cheating on me. So one night I came home early from work, and I saw a new coat and shoes by the door. Already not a good sign. I muster up the courage and open the door to my wife's room. She's there, alone. I breathe a sigh of relief, until I look out our apartment window and see a guy dangling from our balcony by his arms. At that point, I just see red. I grab a brick that was laying on the counter and I rush outside and start smashing his fingers. He lets go and falls 3 stories to the ground. I look down, he's still twitching. So I run back inside and, in a fit of pure rage, I pulled the refrigerator out of the wall and threw it off the balcony. But in all of the exertion and stress, I suffered a heart attack and died on the spot. And now I'm here." "Ah, that is a sad story," St. Peter says. He turns to the next man in line, "And how did you die, sir?" "Well, I think there's been a bit of a misunderstanding here," the second man says. "I was on my 4th floor balcony, doing stretches and calisthenics. I like to keep fit. But during one exercise where I had my leg up on the railing, my leg slipped and I fell off. I managed to catch hold of my downstairs neighbor's balcony, and I breathed a huge sigh of relief. My neighbor comes out, and I think he's coming to help me, but then he starts smashing my fingers with this brick. I have no choice, I have to let go. I fall all the way to the ground. That's when I realized, I wasn't dead. I might actually make it if I get some medical attention. But then a freaking refrigerator falls on top of my head. And then I died." St. Peter looks visibly disturbed at this point. "Oh my," he says, turning to the third man in line. And how did you die, sir?" The third man says, "Well, I don't know if this is related. So I was sleeping with this other man's wife, see. But then we heard her husband coming home, so I hid in the refrigerator." So little Bobby Macaulay is walking up the street with his grandfather. As they are walking, they see an old lady painting a large house with a small brush. Bobby's grandfather leans down and whispers something in the lad's ear. Bobby smiles and they keep walking. The next day, Bobby Macaulay is in class. The teacher walks in and says, "Today class, we are going to work on vocabulary. I'm going to write a word on the board and you need to use it in a sentence." Mary asks, "What is the word, teacher?" The teacher replies, "The word is contagious. Do you think you can use that word in a sentence, Mary?" I can," she says. "When I laugh, everyone seems to laugh with me. Me ma says me laugh is contagious." "That's very good, Mary." The teacher picks another student, Ian. "Can you use that word in a sentence?" Teacher. Last year, me brother had the measles. He had to stay in his own room because the measles are contagious." "That's very good, Ian." At this point, the teacher notices Bobby Macaulay with his hand held high. "Why, Bobby, you haven't raised your hand all year. Can you use this word in a sentence?" His eyes wide, Bobby says, I can, teacher. Just the other day, me grandfather and I were walking up the road. And we spy this little old lady painting this big house with a wee little brush. Me grandfather leans down and whispers to me, it's gonna take that contagious to paint that house. I was a very happy person. My wonderful girlfriend and I had been dating for over a year, and so we decided to get married. There was only one little thing bothering me. It was her beautiful younger sister. My prospective sister-in-law was 22, wore very tight miniskirts, and generally was braless. She would regularly bend down when she was near me, and I always got more than a nice view. It had to be deliberate because she never did it when she was near anyone else. One day her little sister called and asked me to come over to check the wedding invitations. She was alone when I arrived, and she whispered to me that she had feelings and desires for me that she couldn't overcome. She told me that she wanted me just once before I got married and committed my life to her sister. Well, I was in total shock, and couldn't say a word. She said, "I'm going upstairs to my bedroom, and if you want one last wild fling, just come up and get me." No one will know I was stunned and frozen in shock as I watched her go up the stairs. I stood there for a moment, then turned and made a beeline straight to the front door. I opened the door and headed straight towards my car. Lo and behold, my entire future family was standing outside, all clapping. With tears in his eyes, my father-in-law hugged me and said, "We are very happy that you have passed our little test. We couldn't ask for a better man for our daughter. Welcome to the family." The moral of this story is, always keep the condoms in your car. There were 3 friends, Pedro, Juan, and Jose. They got lost in a forest and accidentally ran into an evil magician. He said he will help them leave, but they have to do his challenge first. If they fail, they will be instantly beheaded. Desperate to get out, they agreed. The first thing the magician asked them to do was find 10 fruits of the same kind. He didn't explain what they were for, but the 3 friends immediately went and searched for the best kinds in the forest. Pedro was the first to get back, holding 10 ripe, very juicy looking, and shiny apples in his arms. "Well done," said the magician. "Now I will reveal the next part of the challenge. You have to put all the 10 fruits up your butt while keeping a poker face on. Make a slight flinch, squeal, or giggle, you will die." Having no choice left, Pedro proceeded to start with the first apple. Immediately, he screamed in pain. Schwack! Pedro's head falls to the ground as the magician swings his sword. Juan arrives next, holding in his hand 10 pieces of grapes. Upon receiving the same instruction from the magician, he exclaims, "Ha! I won't suffer like Pedro. He brought large apples, but I only brought grapes. This will be easy." And so he begins. Grape after grape, Juan maintains his poker face and doesn't even flinch as he goes through the 7th, the 8th, the 9th grape. As Juan was about to get to his final grape, he suddenly bursted out laughing very hard. Schwack! Juan's head falls to the ground as the magician swings his sword. In heaven, Pedro looks at Juan as he arrives. "What happened? You were doing so well with the 9 grapes. Why did you start laughing?" Juan replies, "Well, I saw Jose in the distance coming back with 10 jackfruits." A man is drinking alone at a rooftop bar in a big city. Another man wearing glasses walks in and sits down next to him. The man in glasses says, "Bartender, give me that extra special drink you have." The bartender raises an eyebrow but obeys the man's request and hands over the drink. The man wearing glasses shoots the entire drink down with one quick swig, runs to the balcony of the rooftop bar, and dives over the edge. He falls and the first man watches in horror, expecting the worst. To the first man's astonishment, the man wearing glasses stops 2 feet from the pavement at the bottom of the building and floats gently the rest of the way to the ground. A few minutes later the man in the glasses returns to the rooftop bar. The first man says, "How are you alive? That was incredible." The man in glasses responds, "I don't know, I just get one of these special drinks and when I get to the bottom of the building, I magically stop falling and land on my feet." The man in glasses orders another drink and repeats his jump, landing safely again. He continues this several more times, always ordering the same drink, jumping off the roof, and landing without a scratch. Finally, dumbfounded, the first man leans over to the bartender and says, "I'll have what he's drinking." The bartender sighs and hands the man the special drink. He chugs it, dives over the rooftop, and falls to his death. Afterward, the bartender leans over to the man in the glasses and says, "You know, you really are an asshole when you drink Superman." 3 guys are hiking through the woods when they find a lamp. One of them picks it up, rubs it, and out pops a genie. It booms, "You have finally freed me after all these years, so I'll grant each one of you 3 wishes." The first guy immediately blurts out, "I want $1 billion. Poof, he's holding a printout that shows his account balance is now in fact 1,003,50. The second man thinks for a bit, then says, "I want to be the richest man alive." Poof, he's holding papers showing his net worth is now well over 100 billion. The third guy thinks even longer about his wish, then says I want my left arm to rotate clockwise for the rest of my life. Poof, his arm starts rotating. The genie tells them it's time for their second wish. First guy says, I want to be married to the most beautiful woman on earth. Poof, a stunning beauty wraps herself around his arm. Second guy says I want to be good looking and charismatic, so I can have every girl I want. Poof, his looks change and the first guy's wife immediately starts flirting with him. Third guy says I want my right arm to rotate counterclockwise until I die. Poof, now both his arms are rotating, in opposite directions. The genie tells them to think very carefully about their third wish. First guy does, and after a while says I never want to become sick or injured, I want to stay healthy until I die. Poof, his complexion improves, his acne is gone and his knees don't bother him anymore. Second guy says I never want to grow old. I want to stay 29 forever. Poof, he looks younger already. Third guy smiles triumphantly and says my last wish is for my head to nod back and forth. Poof, he's now nodding his head and still flailing his arms around. The genie wishes them good luck, disappears, and the men soon go their separate ways. Many years later they meet again and chat about how things have been going. First guy is ecstatic, I've invested the money and multiplied it many times over, so me and my family will be among the richest of the rich pretty much forever. My wife is a freak in the sheets, and I've never gotten so much as a cold in all these years. Second guy smiles and says well, I built charities worldwide with a fraction of my wealth, I'm still the richest guy alive and also revered for my good deeds. I haven't aged a day since we last met, and yes, your wife is pretty wild in bed. Third guy walks in, flailing his arms around and nodding his head, and says, guys, I think I fucked up. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments below. Turn on the notifications to know when we post new videos. Thank you for coming to the House of Reddit.